Alrighty, howdy folks. Like Todd said, we've got a shield here. We're just going to hang out and do a little bit of sculpting. I guess this is a Stoneborn shield. Is this also technically a Cleric shield, Todd? Or is it just Stoneborn?
It'll be usable
as a Cleric
in general, but yeah, it was the idea was it was a Cleric shield.
Okay.
It's done as part of a Cleric concept.
So if you're into Clerics, you get this super sweet shield that you can craft or do whatever you do in Crowfall to get. Just playing. All right, so I'm just gonna hang out and sculpt. If there's questions or anything in the chat, Gibson over here or Jack can shout them out. And so I kind of started this yesterday around 4 p.m. and I've been able to block it out a little bit so far. So you can see this is the concept that Dave provided. He did these super cool shields and maces and whatnot. So we've kind of got the face blocked out here. We've got like the general shield blocked out, these cool horns and stuff. So I think maybe what we'll do is we'll start by adding a little bit of color just so we can visualize it better. So I'm going to go ahead and choose some materials here that we can throw on. Let's see, maybe this guy. And I'll go in here and give it that kind of like goldish bronze tint, just so we can kind of get a feel for what this might look like. See, the colors might be a little different on the stream, but it's close enough. And the program that I'm using is ZBrush. It's a sculpting program. You guys might have heard of Max or Maya before. If you've ever seen any of my other videos, like I generally use ZBrush for everything I do, and that's no different here.
Here's a question.
Okay.
Of all your Crowfall sculpts thus far, which are you the happiest with?
Okay. Just to repeat the question was, of all the sculpts that I've done, which one am I the happiest with? And I think it's probably a toss-up between the dragon statue that I did not too long ago and the Templar's plate armor set that I think is the Templar in game? The Templar's in game, right? Yeah, the Templar's plate armor, which is the one with like the scales, or the scale set, I'm sorry. It's got like a bunch of scales on it and stuff, and some gold trim. I like that one a lot. There's a couple of weapons that I really like. There's a champion mace.
Do you want to poke your head?
No. You want to come hang out? You want to come hang out?
Hi, Eric.
Hey, Max. Yeah, there's a champion mace that I did that has like a skull with a bunch of spikes coming out of its top and stuff that I think is pretty neat. But yeah. All right, so let's just add this blue here. That'll be good. All right, that's a good start. I'm gonna go ahead and just start right on this centerpiece here. I did a lot of the, actually I did all of the druid armor, and I really like the way some of her stuff came out. Like her plate set is kind of this like bone armor that I think is really neat, and then her scale set is like this set that's got a bunch of like leaves and vines and flowers and stuff, which I always really liked. So I think that one was cool. I did the ranger plate set, which was pretty neat because she's got those like heavy cloaks that go over her one shoulder. Just gonna kind of smooth this out a little bit. What is that noise? Awesome. Oh.
Do you prefer a tablet or a mouse for sculpting a model?
I use a tablet almost exclusively. Once in a while for like a certain thing, like if I'm trying to mask something, I might use a mouse, but I pretty much use a Wacom tablet for everything I do. There's a guy sweeping outside our window right now for some reason, so sorry if you hear some weird noise.
I don't know why he's sweeping
He's like,
outside.
he's like, this is the exact spot that I need to sweep at this moment.
Right against this window.
Like no one's ever swept there in the history of this entire building's construction, and, like life. Yeah, I think like some of our guys like Billy and Dave, they use Cintiqs, which are like the screens that you can draw on.
Those are so nice.
They're very, very nice. I used to have one of those and I like them, but I kind of like just using a Wacom for sculpting, but for drawing and doing 2D stuff, those are second to none. Basically what I'm doing is I'm masking this area off so that I can isolate it, and then I can kind of pull it in like we see here and kind of create a cool shape. It's kind of got like a triangle here. That. This is just going to be really rough, but kind of just trying to block out all the details of this, and then I can go back later and start to refine it. So take that, and then I can smooth this out a bit. And it kind of gives us generally what we have going on here. Actually, another one of my favorite weapons that I sculpted was the one of the rangers or archers' bows that has like wolf heads on both sides of it. I always thought that one was really cool. I don't know if I've ever actually seen it in game, but I like that one quite a bit. Okay, so he's got that piece.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Greco's? I assume that's Greco's concept art.
Yep. It's cool.
Someone was asking where the art came from, and I figured it'd be better for you to kind of give an overview of that.
Yeah, this is a concept from Dave. These are Cleric weapons. I don't know if I can show this sheet, but I'm going to show this sheet, so sorry. So he basically did this lineup of shields and maces that the Cleric could wield, and they're really cool. As you can see, there's like some more basic ones and then some fancier ones, and this one's really cool. I mean, they're all super awesome, but yeah, he's been cranking this stuff out, and these are maybe some of my favorite weapons that I've seen to date.
Yeah,
so,
these are really cool.
Yeah, they're awesome. I think we've kind of like, you know, we've been really exploring like how far we can push our weapons and push some of our designs, and it's cool seeing some of this stuff really start to get detailed and get some really interesting shapes. And it's cool because you can start to clearly tell like which race might have crafted each one of these shields or weapons. And I like being able to have that kind of identity in that stuff. I think it's super neat. All right, so let's work on these horns a little bit. Actually, we'll do this. Go in here and clean up this sculpture of the dwarven face a little bit. Oops, it's got some horns. There we go. And since this is a sculpture, I kind of want the edges and stuff to be really kind of like hard and carved in, so I'm going to go in here and try to refine some of these edges.
Which model have you found the most difficult so far?
Ooh, which one have I found? Which model have I found the most difficult so far? Any of them? Any of the scale armor sets always tend to be really difficult, just because how do you lay out a whole bunch of different scales evenly and cleanly and not make it look like a bunch of noise? So I mean, that Templar armor was challenging. That dragon statue was challenging just because there was so many scales. But I think also the Ganetian for us took a long time because we were trying to figure out how the Ganetian should look. Like, how far should we push the stylization? Like, should he just straight up look like a guinea pig? Should he look more Pixar-ish or Disney-ish, or, you know, like stylized? So we have like maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 different versions of the Ganetian that we went through before we kind of settled on one that we felt good about. So that was definitely a challenge, and it wasn't anything like technical. It was just trying to find that right look that we felt fit correctly.
Doggett said he misses you and he wants to know if you want company.
He can, if he's got stuff to say, he's more than welcome to come in here. If he's a useful contributor. But I miss him too. What's going on here? So there we go. I go and add some like dings and maybe cracks and stuff. Clean some of this up.
So something, I don't know if somebody already asked something like this, but something like this complicated in terms of all the stuff that goes into the shield, about how long would something like this take it in comparison to like one of the simpler shields?
Sure. Something like this is probably I would probably spend 2 to 2.5 days on. Basically a whole day just for the sculpt, and then a day to build the low poly and texture it, versus like this guy over here on the right, I would probably be able to just do in a day the sculpt, the low poly, and the texture, just because it's pretty straightforward. So anywhere between 1 to 3 days for most weapons, I would say, on average. The swords are pretty easy, like the Templar swords were straightforward, and some of the other ones, but then like some of the Rangers' bows, those took a bit of time, so it definitely fluctuates. This is maybe one of, I mean, this might be our fanciest item in the game so far that I've seen.
Yeah, this one's really intricate.
Yeah, like we don't really have anything like it. So he's got some detail in his beard here. I'm gonna try to figure out how I can integrate that. Curious if anybody in the chat has like a favorite armor or a favorite weapon that they've been able to craft so far that they really like. Kind of be interesting to see what designs and stuff that people enjoy.
For our game, have you only been sculpting from concept art, or have you been doing anything freehand?
Sometimes it depends. I've definitely done some stuff freehand. For the most part, we always have concepts, but sometimes we can't do as many angles of concepts that we want. So like I might get a concept of like the front of a, say, a chest plate or something, and then I have to kind of infer what that detail might look like on the back of the chest plate. So there's a combination, or in some cases we just did a concept like a long time ago, and our aesthetic and our style is evolved a little bit, and so part of that is kind of interpreting and modernizing some of our older stuff if we haven't had a chance to reconcept it. So sometimes that happens, but for the most part, we have concepts.
There's a lot of stuff that people like.
That's good.
People really like the, someone said they have the female ranger plate armor render as their desktop background.
Oh, that's cool.
The Myrmidon leather and bone, that one's my personal favorite.
Yeah, that
I
one's
love
awesome.
That armor set.
Yeah.
The Templar mail armor.
Yep.
Champion two-handed axe.
Oh yeah, he has some cool axes. Some of the older ones you forget about because we haven't really talked or focused on them in so long, but like even some of the original Confessor armor sets were really cool. Like her cloth and leather set is really neat. The Knight, I haven't seen him. Like the Knight was the very first ones we ever did, so he's kind of like the original, the OG. And then you know, actually, who was really challenging, I kind of forgot about because it's been years now, but the Legionnaire's armor, like his plate set was so fancy. It had all these tassels on it, and he's just covered in plate armor, and he was a challenge. Some dings and damage. Clean up some of these areas around his eyes. That's looking okay. Let's see. Let's work on these horns a little bit. I think maybe my favorite character in the game though is the Myrmidon, just because he's such a beast and he's so much more savage than everybody else. And when I was sculpting him, I wasn't really sure what the animators would do with him, so it was really cool to see him come alive. And Greg and Aislinn did such a cool job with his FX, so I think he might be my favorite. I'm looking forward to the assassin a lot too. Was Doggett just animating the assassin in his stream? Like she's gonna be really cool. She was challenging. Like those wings are so massive, and we weren't really sure how they would work out because it's pretty radical.
He was doing the Nethari assassin,
Cool.
but he was talking about how much of a challenge the wings on the Fae are gonna be.
Yeah. But if it works out, she's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it will. We've got some other races coming soon, too, that I'm super stoked about, that I think you guys are going to like. I'm going to block out these segments that this horn has. You can see these guys. Actually, first what I'm going to do, it's interesting because it's kind of got like a split in it, so maybe I'll try to add that. Just back to the freehand stuff, it's fun to be able to freehand sometimes, but when I have to freehand in 3D, it ends up taking a lot longer. So it's when I get like a good solid concept that I can just follow, it's nice because I don't have to focus on figuring out if details and design elements look good. I already know that they look good on the page, so I can just kind of focus on the technical part of modeling, which is cool.
Who is modeling? Oh crap! Where'd the question go? Who's modeling the props? Are you doing all the modeling, or is there anybody doing the more like the loaves of bread and the simpler stuff?
Yeah. So we've got a couple environment guys, John and Aaron. I think Aaron's done a lot of props. He's kind of like the prop guy. I think we have environment outsourcers too that might be doing some of that stuff. I'm not sure what they've been responsible for, but I know our man Aaron, he's done a lot of props and little stuff like that. So we should have him come on and just model some bread, model like a stew or something.
Yeah, every time I walk by and he's modeling something, it always looks really cool.
Yeah, he did a lot of the crafting tables, which are awesome. Like
Yeah,
those are just rad. And once in a while I'll help out with environment stuff if they need it. Like I did that dragon statue, I've done some other statues, I've done some textures, but we have so much character stuff and I'm the only character guy, so that tends to just be kind of what I stick to. Push this in. I don't like that. Kind of block out these segments here. We were talking about how this shield should like speak to you. Like it would be cool if his little beard mandibles wiggled. I think that would be pretty awesome. I think that should be Dogged's next task.
Beard mandibles. So mainly, I think you guys can kind of get a sense, like
I start rough, like just block it out and see if it even looks good. And then once it seems like the design is strong and it feels like the proportions are correct and stuff, I can go in and start refining it and detailing it. So like, you know, with these lines, I just start really rough, but then I can come in after the fact and begin to like actually make those look like they're sculpted and part of this design.
I don't know if you'll know this or not, but has there been any talk of there being a concept art book for backers or for sale at all?
We talk about it a lot. I mean, we have so much art.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we really want to do. I don't know if we have concrete plans, but the artists here, we talk about the idea of doing that all the time. So I really hope we do. You know, it's not something we're going to prioritize over other things that are more important, but if we ever find that we have the resources, I think absolutely we would. I think we might have prints, or we've talked about selling prints, or maybe we've done giveaways at the very least, but I think it would be really cool to get some more of that art out there.
I'd totally buy an art book.
Me too.
Half the time I'll lean just the wrong way and I can see Greco's monitor from where I sit, and
Yeah.
I'll realize that it's been like 10 minutes and I've only been
Right.
sitting there staring at him drawing.
Right. Yeah, 'cause the illustrations he does are just awesome.
It's a good thing he's the only artist whose monitor I can see.
Yeah, I used to sit next to Greco. I don't anymore, but I definitely caught myself on more than one occasion just kind of snooping on him and watching him work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never did.
No, you're too cool for that.
I watch you though.
Do you?
You don't know it, but he stands right behind you and
Yeah.
watches you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can feel me breathing and that.
It's nice.
I definitely like slow down a little bit if I'm walking by your desk too. I'm like, what's he doing? But I can't justify just like standing there.
Just
and
like
staring.
stopping.
Especially when you were modeling the Elkin. I was like, I'll just walk really slow.
I usually just bug him and say, hey, that's really cool.
That's cool, man.
Can you record it? Sure, man. Did you record it? Nope.
Nope.
No, I didn't. No, I did not. In in our first office, we had these big windows that kind of went out to the main lobby of the building we were in, and so people who weren't in games or just were from other businesses would walk by those windows and see us working and just like stop and start staring inside, and that was always kind of awkward. I think we started closing the blinds because we're
Oh, in the 1999
yeah.
building.
Yeah. Especially if I'm like working on like a base body or like blocking out like a base mesh and it's like just a nude dude in some boxers or something, and I'm like this is awkward that everybody's staring at me right now.
You were kind of back in there though, weren't you?
When I first started, I was right up in there, and then I moved into that back room. I used to be where John and Dave were there
That's
for
right,
a while.
and Dave was out right by the window.
Yep. Yeah, Allison and I used to sit out there. Did you ever actually work in that office, Gibbs, or did you came
I
in the second office kind of? You
Well,
filmed in that first
I came to
office.
shoot there, and then you guys moved like the next week,
That's right.
and then I worked out a tech branch.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you were like a secretary there. Just
Got fucking put out, and then every once in a while Todd would come out and go, oh, hey, we're having a party tonight if you want to come. I'm like, oh, yeah, thanks for the notice. Oh wait, are we live? Just kidding.
Just kidding. Love you, Todd.
Yeah, so some of this stuff can be tedious at times, as you can see, but it's just part of it. Especially when you have like a repeating segment, you kind of have to make the decision. It's like, all right, do I figure out a way to like do this once and then duplicate it, or do I just brute force it? What's going to be faster? And generally, since all of our stuff is so unique, I end up going the brute force route. But stuff with like scales over time, since I know like almost every hero is going to have a scale armor, I've developed techniques to help make building scales and things like that faster. Same with like chainmail. But some stuff you just got to do. Some of the stuff on here I actually haven't figured out how I want to handle yet. Like he's got the like Celtic weave thing on here that I need to figure out the best way to approach that, and some of this detail, figure out kind of what that might be and make that look cool. Try to define what some of this stuff is. So that's the thing, it's like sometimes with the concepts, you know, that's where the freehand stuff comes in, where it's like, okay, I understand the general shape and what's going on here, but then when you look into the particulars, it's like, okay, some of the stuff I have to interpret and figure out what's going to look good in 3D. So that's the challenge sometimes. And depending what that is, you know, like if it's an armor set, a lot of times I'll grab the animators and say, hey, like, do you think this is going to deform weird, or is this going to look okay when she's in like an extreme pose? We kind of try to think about things like that too. So I'll try to flesh this out a little bit. Seems like he's got this cool crystal right in the center, so I'll try to figure out how I can fit that in. Oops. This is one of the reasons I love ZBrush, so I can go in here and kind of paint an area where I'm like, all right, this is the general shape I want, and then I can actually extract this as a new piece of geometry, so kind of do that, and now I have a whole nother piece that I can work with. Pull that out.
Is ZBrush the program you normally use, or do you use
Yeah.
anything else to supplement?
ZBrush is what I use for 90% of what I do, but Maya's kind of like home base, so I'll unwrap models and kind of stage models in Maya. I don't do any modeling in Maya, very rarely. Once in a while, if there's a very specific shape that I just don't know how to approach in ZBrush, I might block out in Maya, but I try to avoid it if I can. And then there's a couple other programs I use. I use a software called TopoGun, which is for building the low poly version of the characters. And then I use Photoshop for texturing mostly. So this is just real rough. Give it some shape.
What is it that you like about ZBrush as opposed to other similar programs?
What is it that I like about ZBrush? So other programs like ZBrush are like Mudbox. I think Blender has sculpting tools. 3D Coat has sculpting tools. I just like ZBrush because it's fast and I can iterate quickly, and I don't ever feel like I'm married or locked into something. So it's like, you know, if I decide, oh, I don't like the direction this went, like I can super quickly just like undo it or go back or go forward, see my progress. So I really like that. I like how fast I can isolate stuff. So I can easily just hide stuff or mask things away. Like if we want to just focus on part of this horn, I can quickly just say, okay, let's just focus on that, or I just need to look at this tip right now. So things like that are really neat. I like the symmetry that I can, you know, sculpt on this horn and work over there. The symmetry gets really cool when you're doing like radial things. So if I wanted to do a bunch of stuff on this shield, I can choose how I want to do that. So I can even do some crazy stuff like, let's see, go on like Y. Say, okay, let's do a bunch of bolts all the way around this. So there's just a lot of really cool tools that help model quickly and try stuff out, see what works, see what doesn't work, do stuff like that. Cool, like octopus shape. So that's all really neat. So we kind of got to figure out how this gem's going to fit behind this headpiece. I think what I'll do is I'll pull this headpiece forward a little bit. Just tuck that back. Oops, we messed that up.
Has there ever been talk of selling the 3D files so that people can 3D print some of these things?
Folks have asked that before. It's definitely possible. The thing is, with 3D printing, like I wouldn't want to just release the models as is. I wouldn't want to release the versions of the models that are for the game. I would want to prep them in a way that they could be 3D printed without anyone having to do any modifications or anything to them. So hollowing them out so they're not just solid and don't have a bunch of, you know, plastic or whatever inside them. And two, it depends on what kind of printer. So like, you know, some printers can print a character with its limbs and everything, and other printers you have to actually chop the limbs off or add support beams or structures and stuff. So if we did that, I'd want to do it right, and I haven't really seen any other companies or people doing that, releasing their models for printing, but I don't think I mean, we're not opposed to it, it's just where do we spend our time?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I think that would be cool, and I know up on like different like 3D printing communities, models from games will pop up. Like, I think people might rip them from the game or something and put them up there, but that's weird. Yeah, but I'm not entirely sure if that's something we'll do. So that's not perfect yet, but at least we kind of get the general idea of what's going on. Needs to be a lot wider. Add these little bolts in here. So we kind of got those. We got a feel for what that looks like. Start to clean this piece up a bit. Go in there and sharpen these edges and kind of flatten the surfaces out. How much more time are we looking at, Jack?
You've only got about 10 minutes to go.
All right.
So I am gonna go grab Greg and Aislinn and let them know.
You're gonna grab the pot, right?
Yeah.
If you guys have any more questions, I've got about 10 minutes left. Go ahead and put them in the chat. I think there's going to be a FX demo next with Greg and Aislinn, so that should be super cool. So that's.
What do you have to look out for when making a weapon like this for an MMO versus making one for a single player game?
The question was, what do you have to look out for when you're making a weapon like this for an MMO versus something like a single player game? And the most straightforward answer is just trying to be as efficient as possible. So making sure that we're not using too many polys, not using too huge of textures. And so that's one of the things I look out for when I get a concept like this. Like if a concept has just tons of like spikes and detail and like the silhouette just looks crazy and I'm just like, wow, this is gonna cost way too many polys to make look good. We'll try to figure out ways to translate that without breaking the bank, so to speak. So you know, it's kind of just a balancing act of figuring out how much detail can we get away with without it hurting performance or being something that might just take up too much memory or anything like that. And like our fidelity has definitely gotten higher as production's gone on. You know, we try to make stuff as nice as we can. And two, we're always looking at ways to offer the sliding scale. So, you know, if you need to drop the settings down, you can do so. So trying to figure out the best approach to LODs or to texture quality and things like that. So as many people as possible can play smoothly, and it's tough, especially as we're developing, because things are always changing. And I think you guys have probably seen that, like sometimes performance goes up, sometimes performance goes down, because it's something we're trying to figure out, and it's going to keep evolving. It's looking all right. Go ahead and add some detail to this guy. Yeah. Sure. In the last 5 minutes.
You get one song.
Yeah.
Better pick a good one.
It's like a lap dance.
Green Day. So there's still some stuff I need to figure out on this. Like there's a big gap here. So what am I going to stick in there? I'll probably just kind of put some kind of chunk of bronze. And then we got to clear out the back of this stuff, put some straps in, figure out the detail along these blue areas, figure out the detail here. But it's a pretty strong start, I think.
Yeah, that looks badass.
Thank you. Maybe we'll go in and add some pupils or something to the eyes. Yeah, that's kind of creepy. Yeah. Maybe we'll just get rid of the horns and just make him Santa Claus too. Like we could just add like a big ball here instead.
Oh, see, that's so much better.
Give him a Santa hat. Yeah. All right. So I think.
Mm-hmm. You said you used another program to do the low poly, right?
Yeah. Yep.
What was that one?
The program that I used to do the low poly models is a program called TopoGun, and I can show you guys it just really fast, just so you get an idea. But it's basically, once I finish the sculpt in ZBrush, I have this model that's got millions and millions of polygons. We have to build a version of it, you know, that can run in the game. That's maybe only 1,000 polys or a couple thousand polys. So TopoGun is designed to do that. So if we bring up something really quick, let's bring up.
Somebody said make sure you save.
That's a good idea. What do we got? Trying to find something real quick. Give this a second to load. So we've got a ranger bow here. This is a bow that I sculpted in ZBrush, just like we were looking at. And what I can do is I can go in and start to drop points on this. So we go in and go 1, 2, 3, 4. And what I'm doing is I'm actually placing verts down that will then be the low poly version. So going in here and kind of blocking out what this might be like. And then from there I bridge these together and I have polys. And then if we hide the reference, we can see, okay, there's the start of the low poly version of this model. And then eventually I'll bake it down with a normal map and everything, and that way you get all the detail from the high res. And that's kind of like the general process.
Nice.
people always ask about this stuff, but we never really show it because I feel like it's kind of boring. It's like, okay, watching a dude put dots down.
It's
But
cool for a minute.
but it's cool for a minute. Yeah. And this is like the tricky part where it's like, okay, how many polys do we spend? Because I could easily come in here and be like, all right, let's make this super detailed and put lots of loops in.
It's kind of relaxing to watch, actually.
But then you have to question, like, were those extra loops really necessary? So it's kind of finding that balancing act of how many verts do you need to accomplish the shape of the object? And I feel like that's like a good amount for this. So when you hide the high res, like, you know, you can kind of see the faceting, but really it's not going to be that obvious, especially when you consider you're looking at a bow from like this range or something. Like, you're not going to be super zoomed in on a bow, so you know, you just kind of find that balance.
Todd came in and then he disappeared again.
He was like, I need this.
Yeah, and he took my notebook.
He put on a cape and just flew away. It was weird.
That's what Todd does.
Yeah.
He just appears sometimes and then all of a sudden he's gone.
Yeah. So as soon as Todd shows up again, we'll kind of wrap this up. But
Go ahead and angle that laptop.
cool. Here he comes. Cool.
All right, Todd, you about ready?
I am ready.
All right.
Cool.
How'd it go, Mr. Hart?
Doing very good. I think we had a productive session.
Yeah, it looks like it. I should get you to do this every day. 'Cause
Sure.
look how quickly you crank that shield out.
Right? Look at that. Perfect.
Would you like to have a webcam in your face on
All time. A couple
all the
bright
time?
lights,
Yeah,
webcam,
constantly.
microphone. Absolutely.
And an entire viewing audience. Speaking of, say goodbye to everybody.
All
We're gonna
right.
switch over to Todd.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for watching. Let's kick it over to Todd.